Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Joe Ellis. I'm a commercial wedding and portrait photographer in Dallas, Texas, and today I want to talk about how to make double exposures with your Olympus camera. So it's been a number of years since I was really into this, but with Olympus cameras in particular these days, they have made multiple exposures so much fun to do and so easy that I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a quick tutorial on how to kind of set this up and how to sort of think about making double exposures. So I started experimenting with this a while ago, and it's kind of a gimmick in a lot of ways, but it's also really fun, and it can actually make some photographs that are very different, that might give you just a little competitive advantage here and there, or maybe just give you a way to make a piece of art that you didn't think was otherwise possible. So there are two strategies for making double exposures. The first one is that you can take a picture where you have a bright piece of information with a dark background, and then you can take another one of those and you can fill the dark background of the first picture with whatever bright part of the second photo that you have. So for example, you could take a picture of some string lights against a black sky, and then you could take the dark part of that frame and fill it with whatever bright object that you wanted, also with a dark background. And what that will do is kind of sandwich the two photos together and put the string lights in a scene where they didn't exist. The other thing that you can do is you can take a silhouette of something where you have like a black outline of some object, right, and a regular exposed background, and then you can fill the silhouette, fill the black part of the frame with whatever you want. It could be a texture, it could be another object, it could be any other photo that you want. And so these two strategies are kind of the two key ways that I make double exposures. So I want to show you how to set it up in your Olympus camera and then give you some examples of kind of how this could maybe work in your photography. Okay, to set this up is really simple. We'll just get the camera going here. And if I just go to the menu and we go to camera 2, so second item down, camera 2, over to multiple exposure. Here you'll find the three options that you sort of have for setting this up. The first one is just setting the number of frames, which is just 2 frames. The Autogain is an interesting setting. Autogain will actually make your 2 photos that you're doing dimmer than they normally would be. So let's say you took 2 frames at normal metered brightness, right? And you sandwich them together. Sometimes that can create an over bright frame, especially if you're not doing the sort of tricks that I'm talking about and you're trying to merge 2 normal photos. I don't normally do that kind of work, so I like to turn the Autogain off because I'm using scenes with black in them where I'm underexposing or creating silhouettes, and I don't really want the camera choosing brightness for me. But you can experiment with that if you want to. But the key thing here, not only to turn it on to number of frames, but also to turn on the overlay. And this is really critical because the overlay allows you to see a superimposed outline of your first frame so that you can see and line up the picture and give you the perfect framing for your double exposure. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. If you go into the menu and then you quickly turn on overlay, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to bring up this menu where it shows you all your photos on your card. And you can pick any file that you want and you can use that as the base. So I do this all the time. If you're wandering around taking photos sometime and you run across a great silhouette or a great high contrast situation, take a photo of it, store that in your memory, and then if you want to go back and grab that frame at a later time when you have a subject that you like, then it's super easy for you to be able to go back, grab that, and then use that in your double exposure. So that's killer. If you don't want to do that and you want to take both parts of your double exposure at the same time, then you just hit the trigger button, or touch the trigger button, and then you'll go ahead and take the first frame of your double exposure followed by the second frame of your double exposure right away. Now, if you want to do like triple or quadruple or any other multiple of exposures, if you create first a double exposure and then go in and use that overlay to grab the first double exposure, then you can create a triple or a quadruple and just keep cycling them on top of one another. So that's one way to kind of get around that limitation of only having 2 frames. Okay, so that's how we create it. Now let's talk about what it really looks like and how to kind of set it up. So the first picture here on the computer I've got is the finished file. And this picture is made up of 2 others. I'll show you the first picture was just shooting some string lights. And one tip I have here for shooting lights, because this is very typical for me in double exposures, is that if you actually throw them way out of focus, sometimes that makes for even better lights that you can use in a double exposure. So what you do in that scenario is you actually focus like right on your hand, maybe like 6 inches or 8 inches in front of your face. and then point it at your lights. And then the cool thing is that you're getting like the most out of focus as you possibly can. And you'll see in the viewfinder, you'll see these big out of focus balls that would not otherwise be possible unless you were photographing something only 6 inches from the camera. But that's how I made this picture. And then the second photo here is in my studio. And I really stacked the deck in my favor here because I rolled out some black background and I used a gridded flash in order to direct the light only onto Nicholas. So I have a very dark background. And that means that because I have 2 frames with a lot of dark in them, when I merge them together, I get a very clean double exposure. Okay, let's see another one. So here's another finished file, and this was again made in my studio because I was experimenting a while ago. You can actually, I fired 2 flashes into the background to create a silhouette, which is this frame. And then I ran up to my roof and I got this panoramic of the city, and I merged them together to create the final picture. So you can see here that the dark part of the frame is the only part being filled. And so that's another way to kind of have a double exposure. You can either fill a dark area with some other photo, or you can take a light area of a picture with a dark background and just overlay the light parts on top of each other. So those are kind of my 2 strategies for doing double exposures. And then I'll show you guys a couple of ones that have actually made it into my work. Here's one I posted where it's actually another panorama from a different building of the city, but I was in a dark stairwell and I made a silhouette picture of them, and then I superimposed the 2. So here's the silhouette, the first frame, and then later on we ran up to the roof and I got this frame, and then I merged them together to give me the finished double exposure. And then here's another one. This one was a lot trickier, but I've been going to this location for a really long time, and I knew it could be done. So here's the finished picture, and if I zoom in, you can see here's my couple way down here in the corner. And so what I needed was a picture of the couple shot in a way that gave me a ton of black space, and then a backlit couple just in the lower right hand corner, because I knew that I already had my cityscape and I knew where I had some black area that I could put them in. So what I did was I made this image and I made this image. Now this image is actually pretty tough to make because I needed a big dark room in order to give myself that much black space. So what I did here again is I really gridded the light, and then I backed up with like a 7mm lens and I shot them from quite a distance, and I knew I really wanted them in the lower right hand corner, and that's how I made the finished file. And then the last one I'll show you here is string lights and a dark scene. So earlier in the day I had seen some string lights and I had made a picture of them against a dark sky. And then when I took the couple out for portraits in the middle of the reception, I knew I had those string lights that I could superimpose across any dark area of the frame. So that's what happened here. And it just gives a little added interest, a little bit different look to the photo. And like I said, it could be a little competitive advantage, or maybe it's just a reason to go out and experiment. But I love double exposures. They're super easy to set up in camera. And when you do this with raw files, you actually wind up with a merged raw file. So then you can bring that in your normal workflow and edit and add a little contrast, clarity, whatever it is to kind of make it really sing. So get out there and give it a try, guys. Really fun to do. Let me know what you guys have in terms of questions in the comments. And please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.